What is going on, everybody? Hello and welcome back. This is episode 48 of High Street Sports. This is the Buckeye Show. This is Vince. I'm Chris. We've been out for a while. Not a lot to talk about here, but we're back here to talk Buckeye football and what have you with you guys. Spring practice has started last Tuesday. The Buckeyes are back in the Woody Hayes Athletic Center in all of its glory. So we're here to give you guys a little bit of our opinion and just overall observation on what's going on so far. Not really a lot has developed, obviously, in the few practices that they've had, but football is back, so we're going to talk about it. Damn it, Vince, what's going on, man? Any initial thoughts here before we jump into this conversation?
No, not too many. Just excited for football being back for these first couple of weeks. It's lasts usually about 6 weeks in March to April, and then it's gone again for the summer. And this summer we get one of my favorites back, the NCAA college football game.
Yes.
So that's gonna be fun. But yeah, excited to get into spring football. 1 week of practice down so far. I think they had 2 or 3 practices, not too many usually the first week. And then it kind of ramps up after their spring break. So
yeah.
Not a ton to talk about, but some initial impressions. And I think, my initial impression was not too much of a surprise on who's working out first with the quarterbacks. You've got number 33 working out, Devin Brown, taking the first reps. I wouldn't call them first team reps, but first in line to take reps. Not really surprising. Veteran guy within the program. It's his third year. So you would think that he would have that privilege to be the first guy up. Then you've got Will Howard. And I think that that's going to be a really good battle for the two, not only this spring, but going into fall camp. I don't think you're going to have a settled quarterback until fall camp, maybe a week or two in. Who knows? Thoughts
I think it
on
would
the quarterback battle?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would behoove Coach Day to go ahead and try and make that distinction as early as possible. Last year, kind of turned out to be a shit show, and as far as the quarterback battle went, and I think if you ask anybody, they would agree with that. Devin Brown, I think, admittedly, would tell you that it did kind of get in his head a little bit, but I think what you're seeing out of Devin in the first couple of spring practices, like that first one on Tuesday, Will Howard did not have a great day throwing the ball, and Devin Brown did. And I think, if you go back to what everybody's seen out of the Peach Bowl practice against Georgia, a couple of years ago when everybody was raving, there was that one long ball that was caught on video that was posted all over Twitter. So I think everybody knows what Devin's capability is throwing the ball. It kind of sucks that we got shortchanged in seeing him with a full, game prep and a full game worth of work against Missouri in the Cotton Bowl this past year. But I think it really just hinges on what Devin can do with the playbook, what he can do with the ball in his hands, going forward, and to see if he can make plays with the receivers that he's got, a pretty good rapport with by now. So I don't think there's anything to worry about as far as Will Howard goes. Obviously he's still only been on campus for maybe 2 months. So there's still some getting used to the Buckeye way of doing things, the way that the Buckeyes practice and media and everything else that comes with being a quarterback at Ohio State. So Devin's been there for a lot longer than Will Howard has, and it's going to be fun to see what they're able to do when the competition really ramps up. And like I said, hopefully with Chip Kelly now in the fold, and Ryan Day and both of them working together to kind of figure this thing out. Hopefully it looks a little bit different than it did last year. I don't think it does the Buckeyes any favors to not know who your starting quarterback is that deep into fall camp. So hopefully they can figure some things out by the spring game. Hopefully there's no injury to get in the way of any progression or any battle that could happen throughout the spring game. So, full speed ahead towards that. But yeah, initial thoughts. I think, obviously Devin came back for a reason. he made the comments that he made a couple weeks ago for a reason. You know, he does not have any plans on leaving. Knows what he's capable of. Knows what he can do in this Ohio State offense. So good for him. And obviously Will Howard comes to Ohio State, and I think the conversation was when he first committed and first decided to come to Ohio State that he might be the presumptive starter. But when you look at what Devin Brown's a 5-star talent quarterback,
Mhm.
so to write him off that early, I think was kind of silly. But it's shaping up to be a good battle.
Yeah, and with the battle, I don't think that there's any foregone conclusion. I think last year's battle was a little bit of a dysfunction with kind of what we know about what was going on with Kyle McCord and his father, and the influence peddling that he tried to have there. I think that influenced a little bit of the decision making on Ryan Day's behalf, especially at the beginning of the season on who the starter was. And not really giving Devin Brown a fair shake right away. So I think that what you've got here is it's going to be a battle. And I think you have two guys that could both win the battle. And I don't think that there's a foregone conclusion with this one. You look at what Ole Miss did last year with bringing in another quarterback to compete with Jackson Dart. Jackson Dart, we know, won that battle, and so it's one of those things where you bring in that competition for competition's sake and to make the team better. I don't think that if Will Howard doesn't start, that it will be a failure for bringing in Will Howard. I think that what it really says is that Ohio State wanted to bring in some competition and see what they had, and see where else they could go. So I'm really excited to see how this battle plays out and goes into the future for the next couple of months. Probably we're at like probably 4 or 5 months now of battle and talking about this quarterback battle. One position I don't think you're going to see any battles in is the running back position. I think you've got your two-headed monster there with Quinshot Judkins and Trey Henderson, with a solid depth behind them. Wide receiver, I think you're going to be pretty stacked there. Jeremiah Smith looks like he was built in a lab.
Dude, that's ridiculous. That picture of him standing at practice the other day that Berm took, his quads, dude, like his arms, like that dude looks like a grown man.
Yeah,
Crazy.
I think he reminds me of what that picture reminded me of DK Metcalf's combine pictures, where it was just like you look at him and it's just a total freak. I think that that's what Jeremiah Smith's going to be. But I think he's going to play better on the field. Not to say that DK Metcalf's not a good player, but I don't think that he's a superstar in the NFL right now. Whereas I think that Jeremiah Smith has that superstar potential. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, like, it's when you look at what the offense is, and like you named off a bunch, and Emeka coming back, and Carnell Tate and Brandon Ennis and things like that. Like, it's going to be fun to see exactly what this offense is going to look like under Chip Kelly. And, I think it's the same principle that when Bill O'Brien was named the offensive coordinator and, he was named to come in and run Ryan Day's offense. I think it's the same principle. But when you look at what Chip Kelly's, bread and butter is running the football, and when you look at what Ohio State's kind of struggled to do the last 2 or 3 years is run the football effectively. So when you think about the weapons that Ohio State has at its disposal, and then you think about Chip Kelly's influence on what the offense could look like, the tweaks in the running game, and how creative it can get, you really kind of can't help but just stand back and salivate at what could be with this Ohio State offense and guys like Jeremiah and Quinshot Judkins and all the returners. So it's exciting stuff when you go down the offense and look, and I hate that term, that for a long time people have used to describe Ohio State's resources, right? And it's that embarrassment of riches term that everybody likes to use, but you can't help but look at that roster and think about that. So big stuff for Chip Kelly to walk into. And I think another thing that is kind of being overlooked is the addition of Chip Kelly and how well he fits into the offense and what Ryan Day wants to do. And when you think about what kind of transpired to push him in the direction of Ohio State, just wanting to be a position coach and not really wanting to do everything that comes with being a head coach, you stumbled into a perfect situation. And it appears that he's been pretty loose at practice and walking around and going to each position group and dapping up the guys and really kind of ingratiating himself with Ohio State's offense. And that can only mean good things for the Buckeyes.
Yeah, I think you hit on a major point there, and that is Chip Kelly's run game. I think he's going to elevate the run game here, mix that in with the pro style passing game that we've seen from our guy Ryan Day. I was almost said Urban Meyer, which would have been really dumb because Urban Meyer didn't have a really good pass game until Ryan Day came around. So it is what it is. But no, I think you're going to see a really good dynamic there on the offense with Chip Kelly kind of taking over as the driver, the CEO of the offense, and letting Ryan Day really take over as the CEO of the whole team. He's going to be able to focus on big picture things and not have to worry too much about some of those little details or who's going to play what, how many guys do we need to make a package for, this, that, and the other. You don't have to do that as much as the CEO head coach, which is going to be great for Ohio State. I think that's what Ohio State has been missing to take it to the next level. I think that there's an interesting dynamic in college football in such a way that you see coaches be successful in the NFL calling plays, like offensive plays, but you don't see it so much in college because I think that there's more of a CEO aspect needed within the college game rather than the NFL game. So I'm excited to see that. I'm also excited to see what Chip Kelly can do as far as tempo goes. He mentioned this week during one of his press conferences, I think he only had one, but that, Ohio State was going to deploy tempo where it was needed. And we all know how those hyper fast offenses at Oregon of the past were for Chip Kelly. And those were some high flying offenses. I think that you're not going to see that be standard practice, but it'll definitely be something that gets mixed in. And I think that the Buckeyes had better success last year when they ran tempo rather than slowing things down. So, especially a young offense with a young quarterback or someone who's less experienced within the program. I think, and that would be Will Howard or Devin Brown, because Devin Brown has two starts under his belt. Mm-hmm. Will Howard has plenty more, but not with Ohio State and all at Kansas State. And we can say what we want about that. It's an FBS program, Power 5, but it's still Big 12. They don't play defense. Not very well, at least. Kansas State, I think, is about the only team in the Big 12 that plays defense. So he wasn't playing any of those. So I think you're going to have a young quarterback. And one of the best ways to get him in rhythm, go tempo, quick game, quick passes and things like that, quick decision making for those quarterbacks, slow the game down. Speed it up, but it slows the game down for them. So right. I'm looking forward to that. And I think that that's really what you're going to see from Ohio State this season. And it's going to be a whole different dynamic coming up.
Yeah. And I think, to to build on any progress that you're going to make with the quarterback, right? The one thing that has to improve and take a big step forward is the offensive line. And so I think with what Ohio State's added with Seth McLaughlin, who for whatever it's worth, was not the number one center this past week. But I think, Carson Hisman was there because he had been there before, not because that's where he's going to be in the fall. So Seth McLaughlin will make a difference on that offensive line. And then you look at Josh Fryer, who, a lot of people have made mention of the body transformation. He looks a little bit, stronger than what he did coming out of last season. So hopefully, the offensive line can continue to grow, continue to take a step forward. There are some spots that need to be figured out and filled, whether that be Tegra Shabola, whether that be, whoever else, Luke Montgomery or whoever else is there. But, I think in order for Ohio State's run game to truly be successful and Ohio State's offense to truly be successful, that offensive line is going to need to take a pretty large step forward from what we saw in that bowl game. So, but a lot of time between now and August or beginning of September to get there.
Yeah, and I think the offensive line is probably going to be the biggest question mark. I think right now you are going to see kind of a make or break year for Justin Fry. I think if the offensive line performs up to standard, you'll see him continue on with the program. I don't know if he'll be asked to come back if we have another offensive line performance like last season. Now they did get better throughout the season, but still not up to the standard we're looking for. And that would be 4 years for Justin Fry. But Justin Fry had some success at UCLA with new offensive coordinator Chip Kelly. And Ryan Day, a Chip Kelly guy. So maybe that's what it is. Maybe Chip Kelly's the key to the offense and how well it goes. And I see Chip Kelly as kind of a guy like Kevin Wilson, who he sticks around for quite a while until he's ready for something else or wants to go back and be a head coach again. I don't think that Chip Kelly. I think that Chip Kelly is enjoying the time now as an assistant, but who knows if he wants to go run his own program again. We'll see.
I don't know if that'll happen at the college level.
You don't think so? You think he'll go NFL if he goes anywhere?
Yeah, I think if he's going back to head coach anything, it'll be in the NFL. I don't know if he'll get another. I mean, he could. Maybe if it's a Kevin Wilson style, like step down into the group of five. Maybe to do that. But I think Chip Kelly ran his course. I think he figured out this head coaching in the Power 5 thing, especially coming to the Big Ten to play teams like Ohio State. I'm good on that.
Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, recruiting is probably the biggest thing with that. And especially when, being at a program like USC, if you're not recruiting well, yeah, you're not going to do very well at all. And USC has not been good for how long?
Sorry, you're thinking of UCLA.
Sorry, UCLA. That's what I meant, not USC.
The USC, you could probably say the same thing for. Caleb Williams sucks.
Yeah, he does. And the Bears. Also, it looks like the Bears are going to draft him. So,
well, have fun with that. Mm-hmm. Also, you bring up a good point about recruiting and what it takes to run a college football program nowadays. Interesting, and I would be remiss if I didn't bring this up, but Nick Saban had some pretty interesting comments when he was asked. I can't remember where this was, but he was asked, when did he know that he didn't want to, or that his time coaching was done? And he said after the season ended, I don't know if this was this year or last year, but after the season ended in their, exit interviews or whatever you want to call it, the number one thing brought up by the players was NIL money and playing time. When am I going to get NIL money, and what's my playing time going to be like? And you can't help but, hear that coming from Nick Saban, kind of taking the Roy Williams route there with, the game has kind of passed me by, and I'm not the right person to do this anymore approach from another legendary coach in his respective sport in the collegiate level, and just really, really be discouraged about the direction that the sport is going. And, to Chip Kelly and Nick Saban's point, and even our good friend Jeff Hafley, it's becoming more and more ridiculous what these coaches and athletic directors and things like that have to go through just to keep your roster intact. And, there was that big stink about, Ohio State spent $13 million on its roster, which I think was debunked and proven to be false. Anyways, but, that came from a quote that Ryan Day had a couple of years ago when this all started, that it's going to take 13 million or thereabout to keep your roster, your current roster together, which is sad and ridiculous that the NCAA again sat on their hands and did nothing and wasn't prepared for this when the state of California gave them a 3-year heads up, like, hey man, we're going to let our kids profit on their name, image, and likeness, whether you guys like it or not. And the NCAA had 3 years to put some parameters together, lay the groundwork, and chose to sit on their hands and do nothing and let it get to the point where it is now with the transfer portal and with, all this NIL garbage that's going on. So really discouraging. And I thought those comments by Nick Saban were pretty telling about, his opinion on where the sport is headed and where college sports are headed, and his ultimately what led the greatest college football coach of all time to step away from the sport. And his age played a part in that. I mean, he's getting older and his time was coming to an end, regardless. But pretty interesting stuff there with the transition of all these coaches like Chip Kelly stepping away from being a head coach at a Big Ten program to come be an assistant at another Big Ten program, which I think, even 5 years ago, you would never, ever, ever see that happen. So, pretty telling stuff as far as where college football is right now, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah. And, I think that NIL, that something needs to be done with it as far as regulation goes. I think it's a little bit wild. We're kind of Wild West now with all of that. And I don't know that that's the best thing for this country or for the state of college football. But at the end of the day, we're just fans, and it should. We'll see how it actually goes.
Well, we interrupt this portion of the program with Vince's technical difficulties as he pops back into the studio. Welcome back, Vince. After that ad break that we just had.
I don't know what happened there. That
was interesting.
Popped me out.
You got kicked, brother. They said, to hell with your opinion. You're out of here.
Apparently, my NIL opinion is not good with the internet folk. No, I think NIL is great, but I think that there needs to be some sort of regulation. I don't think you need a salary cap, but I think you need something to stop the nonsense of maybe it's you can't talk to anybody until you get on campus and you're enrolled in school, or something to that effect, because that's not being, there's nothing done there.
So I think there are rules for that. And I was speaking to somebody that's pretty involved in AAU basketball and knows, the NCAA rules, because they have a whole set of rules that they have to follow for these kids, even through AAU basketball. And that is one of them. Like, you are not to discuss dollar amounts in the recruiting process at all until you get to college. Like, until you step foot on campus or enrolled in the program, you are not to discuss any type of dollar amount whatsoever. And I think that's where the NCAA is screwing itself, because, and we talked about this before, and I've had this discussion with a lot of people. On its face, NIL is wonderful. It is made to get kids the opportunity to profit on their, of course, name, image, and likeness through advertising, through brand deals, through things like that. It was never, ever meant to be a recruiting tool and to be used the way that it is. And I think that's where, again, the NCAA has screwed itself in, letting that happen. And like, for me, I think it was hilarious that Florida State was the team that got penalized first for NIL violations when Justin Scott put a stack of money in his recruiting graphic when he flipped to Miami. Miami's throwing around money like it's the federal treasury or something. Like, it doesn't make any sense. And Florida State's the one that gets in trouble for whatever NIL violations that they made. It's like, man, I don't know what more you need other than what Miami's putting out in the open. I mean, recruits are talking, and it's blatantly obvious what the U is doing. And it's funny to me, man. It's incredible what the NCAA decides to look past, and it's crazy.
It's a corrupt system that needs some help, and hopefully the NCAA can rein it in. Otherwise, I think you're going to see what a lot of the push is right now, and that is to create two super conferences, the Big Ten, SEC. They go on to create the next true FBS, and then everybody else is just Division I NCAA football. I think that you're going to see that if the NCAA continues to fumble on properly regulating this. I did hear the other day, though, that I want to say it's Dartmouth's basketball team, maybe, but they are trying to form a union, which would then kind of add some more regulation there as well, if you had players' unions. But what that would essentially mean is that the player is truly an employee of the school, which I don't know that that's what NIL is supposed to be. I think that NIL is supposed to be able to reward these kids that are performing on the field with brand deals to capitalize on their name, image, and or likeness. So,
and I think one thing that would take a lot away from all this stuff is if you just put the money in the athletic department's hands and let the athletic department divvy out that money, rather than, if the kids want to get paid and it's going beyond, what it's supposed to be, and it's turning into recruiting stuff, and that is what it is, and just turn the money over to the athletic departments, turn the collectives, have them work for the athletic department and be affiliated that way, and then divvy up the money straight from the athletic department if that's the case. And that makes more sense, I guess, to me, than to have these independent NIL collectives be operating under rules that are blurred, if at best. But it's just, I don't know, it's just weird.
It is. Kind of moving to the defensive side of the ball. I think it's kind of official at this point. Sonny Styles is going to be playing more of a linebacker position. I don't think it's going to be a full linebacker position. I think it's going to be more hybrid linebacker safety. And then we'll see more from that. But and then you've got Caleb Downs coming in. I don't think there's much to talk about the defense, because there's so much going well with that defense. So, other than Sonny Styles, you have Jack Sawyer, who was recognized this week as one of the main catalysts for bringing a lot of the players back on the defensive side of the ball. What are your thoughts there? Do you think he is a captain for this upcoming season due to some of that? Do you think he's emerging as one of the defensive leaders here?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think when you look at the pecking order of the the leaders on defense, it's probably Lathan Ransom, Denzel Burke, and Jack Sawyer. And I think that, you know, with Tommy Eichenberg exiting to the NFL and Steel Chambers leaving to the NFL, I think, you know, when you look at the veteran presence there, that comes with all three of those guys, and not to say that JT Tuimoloau isn't included in that, because I think he is, but clearly I think Jack Sawyer is the catalyst behind these guys. I think JT was the last person to make his announcement on the defense to come back. So, you know, I think, not to say that doesn't, you know, that's any indication of anything, but Jack was the one that said, "Hey, man, I'm in on this. We've got unfinished business here. We didn't reach our potential as a class." And you've heard that echoed, you know, beyond just Jack Sawyer and the defense. It's, you know, Emeka is in on saying that. Travion Henderson is in on saying that, and I think there's a lot to be said for the class as a whole, but for Jack Sawyer as well, kind of, you know, becoming that Captain Buckeye persona. And, you know, he's a local kid, wants to win with the Buckeyes, and I think all of them collectively, Denzel Burke, Jordan Hancock, Lathan Ransom, JT, Jack, and you know, the rest of them, man, they understand what this defense could be, and what this team could be as a whole. And that's a really, really special team as far as, you know, Ohio State history goes. There's been a lot of really good teams that have come through this university and this program, and I think they know that they have as good of an opportunity as any of them to go out there and you know, handle some unfinished business, get back to the Big Ten championship game, get back to the national championship game, and bring that trophy home to Columbus. So, you know, there's a lot of potential there. You mentioned Sonny Styles moving down to the linebacker position. That makes that room, you know, pretty dynamic when you look at what it could be with he, Cody Simon, CJ Hicks, if he can take a step this spring and summer and fall. So, you know, that adds athleticism. He's a big dude. Shout out Luna. He's a big dude who can, you know, make plays. And I think, obviously, we've talked about it. Everybody else has talked about it. He's better served, I think, with his size and his body frame to be closer to the line of scrimmage, to kind of, you know, be able to carry some of the extra weight that his body wants him to carry. And, you know, I think with having a guy that can, you know, play in coverage, drop back in coverage, and play the run, you know, like he has, then I think, you know, that says nothing but good things for the Ohio State defense. And then again, you mentioned a guy like Caleb Downs, who had 100 plus tackles as a true freshman in the SEC at Alabama. So that's nothing to you know, just look by. And what he adds and what he can be with Lathan Ransom back there at the safety position. You know, Jordan Hancock playing that nickel corner hybrid safety position as well. So there's a lot of versatility on the Ohio State defense. And, you know, it's tough for guys like Jermaine Matthews, who had an incredible Denzel Burke-ish freshman season. But when you've got the talent that you have in that secondary, it's going to be tough. But, you know, people will find playing time the way that Jim Knowles and Tim Walton see fit. And, you know, I think this is a problem that the Buckeyes would welcome, rather than to be in the position they were a couple years ago with not a lot of depth there and not a lot of talent there. So top to bottom, where do you think, you know, just on paper, top to bottom, what do you think about the talent level at Ohio State as far as the defensive side of the ball goes, and where they rank? She has some opinions as far as, you know, where they rank as far as, you know, maybe defenses in the last 10 years of Ohio State.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're going to see what a lot of people are going to call a historical defense. I think that we really, though, need to see what it looks like out on the field. But I think you're going to see, you mentioned Jermaine Matthews. I think Jermaine Matthews will get enough playing time to make him happy. I think you're going to see some more with that. And, you know, I think you're going to see some rotation in the secondary, and really, you know, it's going to be an interesting season for the defense. Sky's the limits for them. I think that this could be probably, of the last 10, to 20 years, this probably could be one of the best, if not the best defense, college defense for college football period. I think that this team is a national championship or bust team. And really at the end of the day, sky's the limit. Let's see if Ryan Day can finally get over the hump and win himself a championship. I think he's kind of entering the era that Kirby Smart has in the last few years, where Kirby finally, after a couple of years falling short, especially to the Goliath that Alabama was, finally got himself a couple of national championships. And I think you can I think that Ryan Day is on a similar glide slope and path that you're going to see him continue to rise and maybe get over the hump and win that championship.
Yeah, and I think, one thing that is important too, when you talk about, the depth that Ohio State has, Jermaine Matthews and some of those other guys that are looking to get some playing time. With a 12-team playoff, I mean, you're going to have to win 16, I think, was it 16 or 17 games to win a national championship? Like, there's a lot
NFL
that's
season
going to happen. Yeah, I mean, it's a long season, so you're going to need depth like that. And Jermaine's going to have plenty of opportunity to get in and see playing time because, I think everybody knows that, with the depth all over the roster, you're going to need everybody on the team to truly step up and make an impact when their number's called, just to preserve some stamina, preserve some injury, and to avoid some of those, key pieces falling, because of being tired and injuries that come with your body being tired. So, yeah, I mean, I think there's going to be plenty of opportunity for everybody to see the field. But this is a big spring for everybody. This is a big spring for the veteran guys to lead the younger guys, to establish the expectation, and to integrate the new guys that are coming in, Caleb Downs and some of the other pieces. So it's a big spring for everybody involved, for Ryan Day, Chip Kelly, and everybody else to kind of figure out where how things are going to work, play calling and how the offense is going to work, and things like that. So one thing that I will say that we must see, and I'm not taking anything away from Jalen Ballard, but please, Caleb Downs has to return punts and kicks, right? Like, he was electric. He was electric with the ball in his hands doing that at Alabama. He's got to do it here. I mean, that's something that Ohio State has desperately needed and hasn't had since Jalen Marshall is an electric punt returner. And my God, if we can just have any threat to return a punt to the house, just please, man, please. I just want to see it.
Well, I think that you're at least going to see a massive Australian punter come in.
Yes.
That dude is on the special teams front. I'm not going to speak and speculate on returners. We've done that for years now, and nothing has come of it. Do I think that Matt Guerrieri is going to do something different than Parker Fleming on that front? I don't know. To be honest with you, I don't know. Because guess what? We've been saying this for it's been since I think Jim Tressel was the coach that we ran a kickback for a touchdown. So maybe Jim Tressel for the special teams coach.
That'd be sick.
Just saying. I mean, the guy understands special teams and cares.
Speaking of Jim Tressel, I think the mandatory uniform for an Ohio State coaching staff should be sweater vest all the way around.
No, I like the sweater vest. Don't get me wrong, but no, you don't want to do that because then it'll turn it into a meme, and I don't think that Jim Tressel should be turned into a meme.
Some would say he's been a meme.
Who would those some people be?
I would never. Some would. I would never.
Okay. Some would. Got it. All right. Well, I think that Jim Tressel turning into a meme is right about on cue for this episode of High Street Sports and where we end up going off the rails.
We
So,
always get there somehow,
yeah,
one way or another.
Any final notes other than sweater vests for everybody?
I want one, and I want the American flag pin on it, and I just want more of Tress around the program, man. I miss Tress. It's a good dude. Great coach.
I can get on board with this.
Yeah. More Tress around Ohio State. No, I don't have much of anything else. I think, it's just exciting to see the new pieces at Ohio State on the field finally in some kind of football capacity. Looking forward to the spring game coming up. So we will be here more with, whatever news that comes out. We'll be here to tell you guys about it and talk about Ohio State football. If there's anything that we missed that you would like us to talk about, or, any just observations that you want brought up on the show, put them in the comments below. We'll get to those as they come in. But other than that, keep subbing, keep sharing, keep, liking. And I know the content isn't as frequent as it is during football season, but we're doing our best to kind of make sure that if we come on here to talk about Ohio State, we have enough to talk about and not just come on here and blither about clothing options for the coaching staff. So,
or helmet decisions by Jack Sawyer or
yeah, that helmet sucks. But anyway, so we're trying to make sure that we have enough to talk about when we do come on here and talk about Ohio State. We don't have as many connections as other shows do. So
we are not insiders.
We are not.
We are outsiders for sure.
But we're just here talking about the game that we love, the team that we love, and everything that comes with it. So, if you guys have any suggestions, anything you guys want to hear, put them in the comments below. We'll get to them on the show. But other than that, that was another episode of High Street Sports. For Vince, I'm Chris. We'll see you on the next one.
Peace.